So you bought a grain mill. Now what? If you're not sure the best way to maintain, to take care of, and even troubleshoot your grain mill, then stay tuned. This video is for you. Hey everyone, welcome back to Grains and Grit. My name is Felicia, and on this channel I help and encourage families like you to grind their own grains and just feed healthy whole grains to your family overall. Today's video is all about the grain mill and also a review of the one that I have. To start with, my grain mill is actually a Wondermill. Now, as you can see, it is quite old. Now, my grain mill is actually a Wondermill. If you're confused yet because it says Whisper Mill, hold on. I started milling my own grains about 9 years ago, and we didn't have a lot of money then, but we knew that we wanted to do this. We were determined to do it. And we were seeing grain mills, $200–300 9 years ago, which was quite expensive for us. Luckily, the whole craziness of 2020 had not happened, and you were able to find grain mills on eBay. So we actually purchased ours off of eBay. It is a refurbished Whisper Mill grain mill with a Wondermill motor. Whisper Mill used to be Wondermill. They just changed the name. So as you can see, and if you Google Wondermill, this looks exactly it. A little worse for wear because again, I've had this baby for 9 years and she is used a lot. Her name is Wanda. Wanda the Wondermill. I think it's appropriate. But she's been going strong for 9 years. And I'm so thankful to still have her, especially when the 2020 craziness happened and you couldn't find grain mills anywhere. Now, 9 years ago, whenever I was starting to mill my wheat, there were only three grain mills that I was aware of. And one was the Mill and the Wondermill. And then also, if you happen to have a KitchenAid, which I didn't have, there is a grain mill attachment to that. So I know people who have used that because they already had the KitchenAid. They could just buy that and it worked out just fine. Now, reasons at the time that I purchased this over the Mill was because I did like the separate hopper. Unlike the Mill or other mills that we have on the market, I know the Mock Mill has become very popular since last year. But as far as I can tell, it doesn't have its own hopper. You have to hold a bowl up to it. Same thing with the KitchenAid thing, which if that's what you got, go with what you got. No need to rush out. But I really like the fact that it had a separate hopper. The Mill is more one device, and the hopper comes out like a drawer. So there's no lid, it just kind of slides into it like a drawer, but you can at least take it and move it around. This one attaches via this little hose here. This is backwards than how I usually have it. That just goes like this, and then you can easily take the lid off, and then it just locks back in. So it's just so handy to be able to move around, because my mill, if you've seen my little pantry tour video, if I have posted that yet, is in another room. It's not in my kitchen. So it's nice to be able to just take this baby and move it wherever I gotta go. Let's just do a basic review of the Wondermill. Again, this one looking a little worse for wear. It's been around for a while. And I love it. Miss Wanda's been doing great. But here's a basic review of the Wondermill. As you can see, you have where the grains go. Now with the Wondermill, unlike, I definitely know the Mill is different. Again, check your manual, but with the Wondermill, you need to turn it on first and then you load your grains. I know with the Mill, you can load your grains first and then turn it on. Minor thing, but if that bugs you, something to consider is at what point you add your grains. And I do like how it comes with a lid to keep the part that you put your grains in safe. So now this, I keep it this way, but it does actually turn around. As you can see, I need to clean it. I purposely left it dirty for you guys. So that can actually go on. Now, how I usually store it is just like this. So as you can see, that's kind of about 2 feet, 2.5 feet. So that's something to consider if it's going under your counter, is the height of the mill as well. Now again, with this particular mill, this comes apart. I can take it with me. It has the lid, which is excellent. So all things that you need to consider whenever you're shopping for your mill. Now, time to show you how it works when grinding your grains. Do know, one negative about this particular one is whenever it starts grinding the grains, it's gonna shift. So if you have it on your counter and you just turn it on, it's gonna like that, and I'll probably show it to you in a bit. So if you've got anything around it, it could knock it off. So I usually just start it. Now that's only when you start it. So I usually just start it while holding it, and then I go about whatever I have to do, and it's not gonna be moving around once it gets going. It's only when it starts. All right, so let's mill up some grains here. I just have some hard white wheat berries to grind up today. You do need to take into account, don't add more grains than what will fit in here. It should tell you what the capacity is. I believe that this is a 12 cup capacity. I usually don't like going over 8 or 9 cups. So just know that roughly 1 cup of grain of wheat berries generally turns into 1.5 cups of flour. So keep that in mind before you just dump a whole lot in your grinder here. So let's set it up. So with the Wondermill, you just turn out the little hose like that, and then you connect it to where it's nice and you'll feel that it's secure. And then we turn it on, and I'll show you what happens when you first turn it on. Woo! So as you can see, it did practically almost a 180 there. It really turned. That's the first time I've actually ever done that where I wasn't holding it. That kind of surprised me even. So be mindful of that when you do that. I don't think other mills like the Nutri-Mill, things like that, do it. I think it's just simple centrifugal force. For any physics people, you can correct me on that one. But as you can see, so again, I just kind of slightly hold it, and then I can let go and let my grains grind. So let's go ahead and do that. Oh, one thing with the settings here, if you can see, you are able to adjust the fineness of it. Personally, I have never noticed a difference with the fine setting when it comes to my wheat berries. I do notice a slight difference when I'm grinding corn, mainly because not in how fine the flour is, but how easy it is for the corn to go through. I do use the whole corn kernels, and I put it on the coarsest setting because that, I guess, opens it up a bit wider to allow the corn kernels to go in. So it does make it easier to go in. Do you know corn has been a bit difficult for me to grind? I usually have to, again, coarse setting, put it in, and then I sometimes have to kind of move it around where it's going in just a bit, but it does grind it. Popcorn would be easier because it's smaller. I'm talking about the corn kernels that I mill for my corn flour. Another aspect of this is it does have this foam cover here for this section. Inside, you will have this section, I know I'm being very technical, that does come apart. And in here is your finest of fine, super, super, super fine flour. And that's there to catch the really, really fine stuff. And it pops back in. And this is important. If you don't have this, flour, poof, going everywhere. Also, if you fill it up and it puts in too much flour in here, poof, this is gonna go up and flour is gonna go everywhere. Ask me how I know. All right, so let's go ahead and grind up some grains. I'm gonna flip this out, put it in, and let's go. All right, and when it starts going, I like to let it go a little bit longer, and that's gonna clean it out. And now we turn it off and wait for it to completely stop. Okay, so hopefully you could hear me there. You wanna let it come completely stop. That way it's not pushing more flour. And again, you want to just leave it on a bit longer after it gets done grinding the grains, and that's gonna push any excess flour out, and it's cleaning that mill for you, and that is important. I do like to keep this on here just to keep this little foam thing down, just as a little precaution. And now we're done, and now we can undo it. Okay. Kind of shake it down a bit, and then there we go. There's our flour. Okay, so now a few maintenance tips of what I do to keep my machine as healthy as possible. As always, no matter what mill you are using, always, always, always read your manual. They are different. How you load your grains are different. the things that you can do to troubleshoot, that can also be different, especially because the troubleshooting and maintenance that I'm showing you may not be what the manual says. It probably isn't. So it may devoid any warranty that you have. So just be careful. I am not telling you that this is the only way to do it by any means, but it is important to keep up with your equipment. Take care of what you have so it will last. Again, this baby has been going strong as a refurbished machine for 9 years now. I have had a couple of hiccups that I've been able to overcome, and I will definitely show you what I did so I didn't have to replace it. So again, you need to make sure that you look at your manual, know what can get washed, what can get wet, and what needs to stay dry. This is super, super important, because if you put something wet in here, it is gonna clog up your grain mill and you're gonna be in trouble. And it's gonna always tell you what you can and cannot grind. This is not for things like coffee beans, anything that has a moisture. If you sprout your own wheat and then grind it, make sure it is completely dry before sticking it in here. And I mean super dry here, because we all know you add a little bit of water to flour and it's gonna start making a dough, and you don't want that in your mill. A few things that I like to keep on hand to help clean it as I go, so I'm not doing one big cleaning, is a little paintbrush. And this is one of those El Cheapo dollar ones, but it's got the nice little bristles here. And after I mill, I like to get in here and just gently, well, I mean, it doesn't have to be gently, I mean, it's just flour, but you're brushing out the excess flour. So let me move this around here. And this is just keeping it clean. That way things don't get overcrowded, because I do know whenever I haven't done this in a while, it does get a little bit of buildup, and then you're gonna wanna do this because it just, you know, I mean, it just builds up. It's not gonna necessarily stop working, but it can. So, and just try to get in the little tube part as best you can. Kind of clean any excess out. Every now and then you can take this foam out and wash it, but again, make sure it's super, super dry. This does clog up after a while, so just periodically, again, this little brush, and you go in and just clear out the flour and put that back in. If that gets clogged up too much, eventually this won't stay in as well. And then you just take this out. I like to dump it in, because again, this is super, super fine flour. And if you're milling different types of grains, especially corn and then wheat, corn flour gets in here as well. And sometimes you don't want to mix it. You don't have to do this. You don't have to do this every single time. You can eventually just clean it out and dump it if it's a mixture of flours. But I do like to just add in a little bit of that really, really fine flour and keep this. Eventually this will get full. You will have to clean it out. So this is just easier maintenance. And then around here, just again, brush that off. Pretty simple. Again, I don't always do this every time. If you're in a hurry, don't worry about it. You can skip it, but this is just something to kind of keep the maintenance up. Every now and then here, you start getting some flour, and same thing, you can kind of just go in here, unplug the machine and kind of just brush that out if you want to. Otherwise, so long as you're leaving it on for a while after you're milling and getting that through, it usually cleans itself out pretty well. Now, as far as the whisper mill goes, you cannot and you don't want, or I just highly recommend you don't wash the top part. This is where the hose is. That's very difficult for it to dry, to get really, really dry. And again, it has to be 125,000% dry before you mill your wheat. So just as a precaution, I never wash this. You can wash this. Again, look at your manual. If you're concerned about dishwasher safety, I don't know. I don't have a dishwasher, so I don't know. I can't tell you. But this is just a simple container. You certainly can wash this if you want. And then just, again, make sure it's 100,020% dry before you use your mill. I can't emphasize that enough. So wouldn't recommend washing this. You can wash this. Don't wash anything of your mill. You can, of course, wash this. This is, again, something very simple. It's not like here. Just make sure it's really dry. Sometimes this does get a little bit, you know, a little bit of stuff on it. The most that I ever do is take a lightly damp rag. I would try dry first. but you can just take this and then just kind of sweep around here. I stay away as much as possible from the part that the grains go into, just to be safe. And of course you can completely wipe the mill down, which you will want to do periodically, because it does get, again, you're dealing with grinding grains, it does get a little grimy at times. Do unplug this before you start messing with it, because once this comes on, if there's any flour in here, it's gonna go everywhere. Again, ask me how I know. Learn from my mistakes. All right, so that's just some basic maintenance that I do with my mill to keep it going. Again, always just make sure you read your manual to see what's good for your specific grain mill, because they are a bit different. Now, let's go on to some troubleshooting. All right, so now let's talk about troubleshooting your mill. The main issue that I have had is where for whatever reason, something damp has gotten in here. The grains were a little wet. The only time I've had that problem was there long ago whenever I sprouted my grains. I don't do that anymore, but I did, do it for a little bit. And if they weren't completely dry enough, that was the only time that I had started having issues. And I've thought on a couple occasions I had broken my mill. I'm gonna have to get a new one, but thankfully I was able to fix it. Again, this may not be covered or talked about in the warranty. Enter at your own risk. If all else fails, do consult your manual, any technical support that they may have with your mill. But I am very much just, I gotta get it done, and I'm gonna just do it and pray to God I don't kill myself or anyone else and break my stuff. And thankfully, what I've done has worked. So again, just be cautious when you do this. So what happens whenever you put something in here that is slightly wet? It gets clogged up and it's no longer going to work. Now with the Wondermill, you can see it has a lot of flour on the bottom. With the Wondermill, it has this button down here, and it's basically like a fail-safe in a way. So I've had it where if I put something in here, it was slightly damp, it shuts off. It's no longer able to move the gears and things like that, and so it cut off and it triggers this switch, kind of like a breaker tripping in a way. Another time that I've had issues with my mill is if I filled it up too much. There's too much flour in here and it's starting to go back. It's then spraying everywhere. That's whenever it's caused issues as well. When that has happened, other than slightly panic, the bottom line is it's got to be cleaned out. And I'm gonna show you how I have done that. First step, unplug your mill. Please, please, please do not do what I'm about to do with it plugged in. That is very dangerous. Don't do it. Anytime you're troubleshooting anything, unplug the mill. First of all, make sure that this is cleaned out. This is a little bit safer to do. This is plastic. It's not in a hard plastic. It's not a soft plastic. I'm not really gonna puncture it. So if this little hose here is clogged, here's some items that you may want to use. I have used a chopstick before. I have used a wire coat hanger, maybe a little bit of scissors, a butter knife, of course my little brush. But bottom line is sometimes this just gets clogged, and I just go in and over a bowl, I just go in and start, kind of fiddling around with here. A chopstick works great for this. And again, this isn't plugged up to anything. It's not electric in the slightest, so I feel safe for doing this. But I go in and I just kind of wiggle this out, go in both ends, and sometimes it just needs to be cleaned out and then you're good to go. So that's an easy way to keep this clean. And as always, that's why I recommend doing those maintenance steps where you're periodically brushing out your mill, keeping it clean to keep it from getting clogged. Okay, so we've made sure that this is clean. And again, always make sure that everything else is clean. But usually if this mill has triggered, it means it is clogged up in here. And when this happened to me, I was able to look in and I saw that there was clogged up wheat in there. And unfortunately, this is just gonna be a little messy, a little difficult, and a little bit of trial by error. And I'm pretty sure that Wondermill would not advocate me doing this at all. But you do what a girl's gotta do what a girl's gotta do. So again, unplugged, it's unplugged. And I've gone in, chopstick, butter knife. My best bet with this is actually a coat hanger. And I have gone in, because you see there's little holes in here if you look, and gone in and started carefully unplugging it. And then I usually do this over my sink because, again, it's going to be quite messy. So I try to break up the flour that's in there, turn it over, and you can see even now flour is coming out, and kind of shake it. You know, do that. You have no way of turning it on the inside. So what I do then is remove all metal devices, don't stick anything in it. And then over my sink, over a bowl, a bucket, something, you're gonna want this covered. I then plug it back in. I flip the switch that's at the bottom, that fail-safe switch. Again, I don't know if all mills have this, but mine does. I flip that switch, I plug it in, and then I turn it on. And it's gonna whoosh, it's gonna really blow out whatever flour is in there. Hopefully, you just have to do this once. I have done it before where once wasn't enough. It did it for a little bit and then it stopped up all over again. So I just started the process over. I unplugged it and then I went back in there, broke up whatever flour I could right here. Again, I'm not opening up any of this. Broke up whatever flour I could right here, dumped it, beat it out, flip the switch, turned it back on over a sink or something. Again, you're gonna have flour go in a lot of places. Just know you're gonna clean up. But it's better than a broken mill. Did it again, and eventually I was able to clean it out completely. Now it only usually would take me 2, maybe 3 times doing that, and then it was fully clear. I let it run for a bit to really get cleaned out. And then I don't put those grains in again. I let it rest for a while. I don't like to immediately do it. I want to make sure that it's really dried out before trying again. So again, this has only happened if any sort of moisture got in here, if my grains were wet for some reason. Even just the slightest bit of moisture is going to do this. So first of all, prevention is always the best medicine. Just don't do it. Don't put the wet grains in here, or make sure that this is completely dry. Don't ever put water in it, things like that. So hopefully that was helpful. Again, I'm pretty sure that anyone who manufactures these grain mills might be cringing right now, but I'm wanting to help you out because $200 and $300 for a mill is a lot of money. And you know, I was able to fix mine. I'm not responsible if you break yours by following my advice. Please be smart. Question of the day. What grain mill do you have? Do you have electric or do you have a hand mill? If you don't have a grain mill, what is your dream grain mill that you're wanting? If you have any questions, comment below and I'm curious to see what you have to say. So there you have it. This is a Wondermill review, maintenance, and a little bit of off the record troubleshooting in a way, things that I've just done that have helped me. As always, prevention and good maintenance is the best way to take care of your machines. These work a lot for us. Miss Wanda over here is a workhorse for me, and I'm so grateful to have her. Thank you so much for watching. Please be sure to subscribe for future videos, and I will see you next week. Bye.